Welcome back, and joining me to reflect on the day's market moves is Kearabilwe Nonyana from Scope Prime Africa. Thank you so much for your time, Kearabilwe. I actually want to start off there with the currency because it is just not looking good for the rand. And I think for the longest time last year, it seemed that the rand during the December-January period would go back to the 17 rand level against the US dollar. But it seems that the rattlesnake has been pushed further into a corner. Is it all at the mercy of the US labor market?
To be perfectly honest, the rand was one of the best performing current emerging market currencies in 2024. And it just took one day to change the fortunes of the rand. The rand sits at almost a 9-month low against the US dollar. And truly speaking, we have to go back to that meeting the Fed had. And seriously speaking, it is the anticipation of the market that there would be further rate cuts in 2025. But looking at the strength of the US economy, it really brings to mind that we might not see any rate cuts from the US Fed. And that has brought about a risk-off scenario, and that has affected the rand.
Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how it goes, because really at this point, the dollar remains king. And of course, we will see how also that interest rate outlook and trajectory affects us as well here in South Africa. Well, let's go into China, because trade data came out of there today. We did get upside surprises on their imports and on their exports. What can we deduce from demand growth from both sides here, domestically and also outside of China?
I think China is a story about confidence more than anything else. I think they have been stuck at 2020, and I think that has been the problem with the Chinese economy, is that the central policies of the Communist Party have not yet trickled down to the real economy. Coupled that with the fact that they had the real estate bubble has really not boded well for that economy. But I do believe that the Chinese economy still is where the pockets of growth for 2025 for the global economy are going to be. And that has to just come down to the Politburo's last meeting, in which they are going to be introducing fiscal and monetary stimulus in the next coming months. It's the effectiveness of that to lead to consumer confidence. I think the industrial story for China has relatively changed. I do not believe there's any pockets of growth in the industrial economy right now. It has to do with those almost 1.5 billion people driving the Chinese growth from now on.
And it's really quite interesting, because you even see that the growth in imports and exports is actually quite different, because you see double-digit growth in exports, but really in imports, just I think over 1% or just under 2%, really just emphasizing that, local demand is still quite struggling a little bit there as well. So we will see how the stimulus packages filter through to the consumer there. I was looking at the oil market, Kearabilwe, and I see that there have been some extensions in gains on that front. And actually, quite interestingly, I did see that Sasol was up, I think, almost 3% today, and I would assume that it is because of that higher oil price. What is it looking like at this point, considering that Donald Trump is on the way to inauguration, but also the fact that the U.S. has implemented sanctions on Russia?
I think, as you said, it's the road to the 20th of January. I think the U.S. political system presents quite a quagmire in the fact that the president, for almost 2 to 3 months, still retains all the powers of being a president. And these sanctions have not been good. But what we can see in the derivatives market when we look at 6-month and front-month futures contracts on Brent crude, is that you're starting to see that they're indicating to a supply side problems while seeing increased demand, which has seen the 6-month contract really go into deep backwardation with those contracts. So I still believe that there's still going to be demand for Brent crude, which really bodes well for global economics, because that really is the one gauge for global economies. And the US is still a high consumer and still the biggest consumer of oil per day.
Well, Kearabilwe, let's go into healthcare because the Life Healthcare stock was up almost 4% the last time I checked today, with investors really rubbing their hands there for what looks like is going to be a big payday again. So, of course, they announced that they are in the process of selling their Life Molecular Imaging business, but also still seeming that they will be maintaining some benefits going forward as well.
Yeah, you know that it's the second disposal in the past 12 months, and it was very value accretive. The last disposal which happened in January last year. But you know the question I ask myself continuously, and I ask my team is a business that's disposing of such good assets in the best place possible? Because yes, they are going to get 13.9 billion possibly throughout 2034, and there's going to be a big distribution of capital to
Yeah.
investors in the interim. But the question is, we buy stocks for future earnings. Now, when you're disposing of assets which are so unique, and I understand that Lantheus bought this business really at a premium,
Yeah.
yes, but this asset was so unique in the healthcare space that I think Life Healthcare had to really consider the reasons as to why they really truly needed to sell this business. It truly is revolutionary in its space,
Yeah.
and I think it had good benefit for investors going throughout the holding of this investment.
Yeah. No, and I will say it was unexpected on my side as well, because that was literally the first question that I asked myself, that are they not getting rid of their crown jewels? But at least there's still some links to the business that they have. Well, let's get to your stock pick for today. Kearabilwe, what will it be?
Yeah, it's Grab Holdings, a Southeast Asian app that really is a super app. It really goes into ride hailing, deliveries, and in fintech. And this is truly a growth story more than anything else, because it's never been profitable before. But in the two preceding financial years, it took a $400 million loss down to a $90 million loss. And I expect it to turn that around and turn into profitability. And my expectation in EBITDA margins is to see a rise in those EBITDA margins. But I truly think that the fintech unit is truly going to be the crown in that jewel.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your analysis today, Kearabilwe, on what has moved investors' money. That was Kearabilwe Nonyana from Scope Prime Africa.